And right now, President Biden is in Poland in an effort to frame this ongoing Russian-Ukraine war as a battle for global democracy. At any moment now, the president is expected to speak in Warsaw, Poland, and emphasize the U.S. and Western allies' united support for Ukraine for the long haul. China is now blasting the West by claiming that the United States and its NATO allies are fueling the fire in Ukraine by intervening, by supplying weapons, munitions, and financial support. Joining us live this morning, Leon Panetta. He served as CIA Director and U.S. Defense Secretary under President Obama. He was also White House Chief of Staff to President Bill Clinton. Sir, thank you so much for your time this morning. It could not come at a more pivotal moment that we have this discussion. Vladimir Putin said of the United States and the West this morning, "It is they who have started the war, and we are using force to end it," adding that it is impossible to defeat Russia on the battlefield. These are not words of a man, of the leader of Russia, looking to back down. In fact, he is doubling down on his invasion of Ukraine. Do you consider that statement calculated, reckless, or both?
When it comes to Putin, I think both reckless and calculating fit. And he clearly is doubling down. He's making clear that Russia's not going to back away, that he's not going to back away, and they're going to continue to fight. And it's pretty clear that he's doing this at a time when, frankly, Russia is not winning this war. Ukraine is, frankly, winning this war in the way they're able to stop Russian offensives. So it just clearly indicates that that we are at a critical time with the war in Ukraine, a time when Russia will attempt new offensives to try to take charge, to try to continue this war, and it is critical for Ukraine to be able to maintain the momentum that it's gained over this last year.
As we approach that one-year mark, also of note, Secretary Putin also remarked on the so-called New START treaty, which caps nuclear warheads that can be deployed, limits the use of missiles that can carry atomic weapons, saying that Moscow would suspend its participation in the nuclear arms control pact with the U.S. Is this a veiled threat?
Well, they've been threatening to do this for a while now, and it isn't a surprise that they would back away from this treaty. It only means that that the situation in the world is more dangerous because rather than being able to restrain the use of nuclear weapons, any agreements to try to put some control on nuclear weapons are now out the window. And so we're living at a time when, frankly, the risks of some kind of nuclear conflict continue to grow.
Is it greater now than it was a year ago when Russia invaded?
Well, I don't think there's any question that we're dealing with a very critical moment. We not only have Putin continuing to pledge that the war will go on, we have the indication that China might consider providing some kind of support to the Russians, and add to that the situation with regards to nuclear, the use of some kind of battlefield nuclear weapon. All of that creates a situation that is incredibly dangerous, but it's also very pivotal. I think the president was right to go to Kyiv. I think he was right to try to boost their morale and to make the point that, in effect, the war they are fighting for their democracy is in reality the war that's being fought to protect our democracy and democracies in the world as well. So this is a very pivotal war at a very critical time.
What I'm hearing you say, Secretary, the stakes could not be higher. This is about more than Ukraine. This is a moment for the president. The fate of the free world lies on what he says and what the West does next. Is it not that moment right now?
It's a moment that clearly will test the United States as a world leader. I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the president's trip that if the United States isn't providing that leadership, very frankly, no one else will. And so it is very important for the United States to be able to step forward to unify with our allies in NATO, to unify with the world in support of Ukraine, because this is a war that in many ways will decide what happens with democracies in the 21st century. And that makes it a very high stakes game for all the players.
The U.S. has supplied billions of dollars in weaponry, and as the president has laid out, will continue to do so. Short of boots on the ground and potentially F-16s in the air, is the U.S. in this war with Russia?
I think the United States is providing as much help and aid, weapons, ammunition, along with our allies as possible. And the reason for that is because the war that Ukraine is fighting is not just their war, it's our war as well. And for that reason, it is very important for our allies, for the United States, to stand unified with Ukraine and make very clear to Russia that we aren't going anywhere, that we're going to be there to provide whatever help is necessary in order to stop Putin from having any kind of success in the Ukraine. So is it a high stakes game for the Ukraine? You bet. Is it a high stakes game for us? You bet. This is a very pivotal war that we're in.
And should that support include, as Ukraine is requesting, F-16s, long-range missiles?
I think that the United States has to have all weapon systems on the table. Obviously, it requires training, it requires time, but I think this is a moment in time when we've got to be able to provide whatever the Ukrainians need in order to make sure that they can maintain the momentum they have and continue to win this war. That's why 2023, I think, is going to be a critical time in this war, because it really is going to decide whether ultimately we are able to push Russia out of Ukraine and possibly force Putin to the negotiating table, or whether we are going to see Putin be able to gain some traction with a new offensive. This is a moment when we really do have to come together in support of the Ukraine.
Are you optimistic a peaceful end will come?
I'm optimistic that Ukraine will continue to fight bravely and courageously for its country. They're good fighters, and they've done well. I mean, they stopped a Russian invasion of their country. Kyiv is still standing, and the Ukrainians are pushing back. So I'm very confident in their capability. What we have to do is to make sure they have the weapons, that they have the ammunition, and that they have the support to be able to continue this war. This is, as I said, a time that will really determine whether or not the United States, our NATO allies, and the Ukraine can stand up to the tyrants of the world and say, you are not going to succeed on our watch.
It is a test of U.S. resolve, and as I said, and it seems as though, Secretary, you agree, the fate of the free world stands in this moment. Secretary Leon Panetta, former CIA Director, U.S. Defense Secretary, and former Chief of Staff under President Clinton, thank you for giving us your time. It is my pleasure to talk.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.